All right, so Batterygate, remember that. I bet you do, especially if you filed a claim.
Yeah.
And guess what? The money it's finally coming through.
Yeah.
Some people are even getting like 92 bucks. Not bad, huh?
Definitely more than what a lot of folks were expecting, I'd say.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, why did it take so long? And how did they even come up with that number? Let's deep dive into it, all the details you need to know.
Well, the legal system, right? It's a long and winding road, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
The settlement itself, that was back in 2020. But then you've got court approvals, appeals, all that. It all takes time.
Right.
Plus, you're talking about organizing payouts to millions of iPhone users. It's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, no kidding. I can't even imagine the spreadsheets.
Exactly.
But okay, before we go too deep into all of that, let's rewind a bit. What exactly was Batterygate? I mean, for anyone who maybe needs a refresher.
Sure. So basically, Apple was accused of, intentionally slowing down older iPhones through software updates, the ones with aging batteries, kind of nudging people to upgrade.
Oh, so like they were being sneaky about it.
Well, the lawsuit claimed they weren't exactly transparent about it. Let's just say that.
And it cost them, right? Big time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. The settlement was a cool $500 million.
Wow.
Though it is worth pointing out that Apple never actually admitted they did anything wrong.
Interesting. So they settle, but don't admit fault. What's that all about?
Sometimes it's a strategic move. Companies have to weigh the cost of a long legal battle against the potential damage to their reputation. In this case, settling let Apple avoid a lengthy trial and maybe, further damage to their brand.
Okay, so it's a business decision as much as anything else.
Yeah, you could say that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But back to the settlement. Who was actually eligible to get a piece of that?
So it was specifically for U.S. residents who own certain iPhone models.
Yep.
The 6 plus 6s plus the SE7 and the 7 Plus.
Okay.
And there's another catch. You had to have been running specific iOS versions before December 21st, 2017.
December 21st, 2017.
Phew.
Why that date? It seems so specific.
Well, it is a key date. See, around then, Apple rolled out a battery health update. So users could actually see how their battery was performing,
Yeah.
and they could choose whether to enable performance throttling or not. You know?
Gotcha.
That update probably played a big part in the lawsuit and the whole settlement.
I see. So it all comes back to transparency, or a lack of it, I guess.
Absolutely. It raises questions about how much control users should really have over their devices.
Right.
And how tech companies should communicate about updates that, affect performance.
For sure. Okay, so back to those $92 checks.
Mm.
Where'd that number come from? What's the math there?
Oh, it's not as simple as dividing the settlement money equally. There's a whole formula.
Yeah.
It takes into account the number of claims filed, legal fees, other costs. Initially, they estimated around $25 per iPhone.
Oh.
But fewer people filed claims than expected, so the individual payout went up.
So a little bonus for those who did file, I guess.
Yeah, you could say that.
But it also shows how these class action lawsuits can really work.
Right.
They can actually make a difference.
Absolutely. Batterygate is a perfect example.
Yeah.
It shows how collective action can hold even huge corporations accountable. It sends a message.
That they can't just slip things under the radar.
Exactly.
So even though Apple settled without admitting they did anything wrong, they still paid a hefty price.
For sure.
Financially, and maybe to their reputation, too.
Potentially, yeah.
But that payout, it's honestly just a drop in the bucket for a company like Apple.
Yeah.
Does that mean these class action lawsuits are just a minor annoyance for them?
That's a good question. It really gets to the heart of corporate responsibility in this tech age.
Right.
Is a financial settlement really enough to deter companies from doing questionable things? Or is it just a cost of doing business? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
So what about the impact on consumers? Did what Apple did hurt their image? I mean, in the long run.
That's tough to say. Some people think Apple has kept its loyal customers, especially, younger folks who might not even know about Batterygate.
Right.
But others think it left a mark, Made
think?
people more skeptical of Apple, maybe less trusting.
Interesting. So even though the payouts are done, the conversation about Batterygate and what it all means, it's not over.
Not at all. It's a case with big consequences. Made us think about transparency, planned obsolescence, the power these tech companies have.
Right. And those questions are still relevant as technology keeps changing.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder, did this case change how tech companies approach updates? Are they more transparent now, giving users more control?
Now, that's something worth looking into, how the industry responded to all this, whether anything really changed.
Yeah, for sure. So what about you personally? Now that you know all this, how do you feel about buying tech? About your own purchases?
You know, it's definitely made me more aware that companies can influence my experience without me realizing it. I'm more likely to do research now, look into updates, think more about the choices I make.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power, right? Especially with tech. The more we understand, the better decisions we can make.
Absolutely. It's about being a conscious consumer, asking the right questions,
Yeah.
expecting more transparency.
Right. So we've unpacked the Batterygate settlement, the legal stuff, the impact on Apple and consumers. But there's more to this story.
All right.
There are bigger issues here,
Oh, yeah, for
like
sure.
planned obsolescence.
That's a big one.
Let's dive deeper into that next.
Sounds good to me. Planned obsolescence.
It's a fascinating topic.
And a controversial one.
Definitely. All right, you ready to go deeper?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Okay, so planned obsolescence.
Yeah. What is that exactly? I mean, for those of us who aren't, tech experts.
Basically, it's this idea that products are designed to become outdated on purpose. Like they're made to stop working or be unusable after a while. It happens in different ways. Sometimes it's the materials they use, like they break down quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Or they make it really hard to repair things. Or, those software updates. Sometimes they can make older models super slow.
Yeah, like they're trying to force you to upgrade.
Right, exactly. So instead of things just naturally wearing out, companies are kind of building in an expiration date.
Sounds kind of shady if you ask me.
Well, it's definitely debated. Some people say it drives innovation, pushes us to buy the newest stuff. But others think it's just a way to make more money. Get you to buy more stuff.
Yeah, I can see that. So where does Batterygate fit into all of this?
Well, the argument against Apple was that by slowing down those older iPhones with the updates, they were basically forcing people to upgrade whether they needed to or not. And because it was so hard to replace the batteries back then, it created this kind of artificial obsolescence.
So it wasn't just the batteries getting old. Apple was making it harder to keep the phones working well.
Exactly. It raises all sorts of questions about consumer choice. Should companies be able to decide how long our stuff lasts?
That's a good question. How do we even know if this is happening? If a company's doing this planned obsolescence thing?
It can be tricky, but here are a few things to think about. Is it hard to fix your device? Like, really expensive? Are the updates making it slower? Do you feel like you have to upgrade even though your device still works fine? Those could be signs.
Okay, so we got to be smart shoppers.
Yeah.
Got it. But what about the bigger picture? What does all this planned obsolescence mean? Like for the environment, for example.
Oh, that's a huge issue. Think about all the electronics we throw away. When we keep getting new devices, planned obsolescence is a big part of that e-waste problem.
It's true. So what can we do about it? I mean, are there alternatives? Can we have innovation in products that last?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
There's this movement now called Right to Repair. It's about making it easier for people to fix their own stuff, so things last longer and we create less waste.
That makes sense. Gives us more control over our tech.
Right. It's about finding that balance between new technology and being responsible. We need products that are built to last, that we can fix, that don't just become junk after a year or two.
So what can we do as individuals to push back against this planned obsolescence?
Well, first, just be aware of it. Do your research before you buy something. Maybe buy refurbished products. Support the companies that are trying to do things right.
Good advice. So we've talked about the legal battles, the payouts, the impacts on people, the environment, but really Batterygate, this whole planned obsolescence thing, it makes you think, what do we want our relationship with technology to be?
Yeah, that's the key question. Are we just going to keep chasing the latest upgrade? Or do we want something different, something better, a more sustainable way of doing things?
Something to think about, for sure.
Yeah.
It's not just about iPhones. It's about all technology and how we use it.
And realizing that we have choices, the decisions we make, they matter.
They do. So let's be informed. Let's make good choices and demand better from the companies that make our tech.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, so we covered a lot. Batterygate, planned obsolescence. But there's something else that's been in the news a lot lately. AI, artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah, AI.
Is that exciting?
And a little scary all at the same time.
Right. Like every day there's some new breakthrough in AI. But then people are worried about what it means for us.
It's definitely got everyone talking. But before we get into all that, maybe we should start with the basics. What even is AI?
Yeah, good point. It's easy to get lost in all the hype. What are we really talking about here?
So at its core, AI is about computers or machines being able to think like humans, learning problem solving, making decisions, even creativity, and understanding language.
So it's not just about robots taking over the world.
Yeah.
Like in the movies.
Well, that's definitely part of the conversation, but AI is already impacting our lives in ways we don't even realize.
Really? Like what?
Think about those personalized recommendations you get on like streaming services or online shopping.
Oh, yeah.
That's AI algorithms figuring out what you might like based on what you've done before.
Huh.
Or your phone's voice assistant, answering your questions. That's AI too.
And self-driving cars? That's got to be AI, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Self-driving cars are a big example of AI moving from research into the real world. And there's so much more healthcare finance. It can do almost anything.
Wow. Okay, so AI is powerful. That's for sure. But you said there are some concerns too. What are we worried about?
One big one is jobs. As AI gets smarter, it might be able to do a lot of jobs that people do now.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
Could lead to job losses in some areas.
That's a real concern. But some people say AI will create new jobs too.
Right.
Jobs we can't even imagine yet.
That's true. Probably more of a shift in the job market than robots taking over. But we need to be ready for that. Make sure people have the skills they need.
And what about bias in AI? I've heard that's a problem.
It's a big one. AI systems learn from data that humans create, so they can pick up our biases, which can lead to unfair outcomes.
That makes sense.
We have to make sure AI is fair and unbiased, and that means being careful about the data we use to teach it.
And then there's the big question. What if AI becomes too smart? Smarter than us? Like in those sci-fi movies.
It's definitely something to think about. Some experts say we're a long way from that. Others say we need to start planning now, just in case. It's complicated. No easy answers.
Definitely a lot to think about. But one thing's for sure, AI is here to stay. It's changing the world.
And it's only going to get more influential, so we need to have these conversations, understand the good and the bad.
So we can use it responsibly.
Right. Exactly. We need to be informed, think critically, and maybe even question our own ideas about what's possible.
Good point. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe AI can even help us figure all this out, create a better future.
Now, that's an interesting thought. The possibilities are huge, and the ethical questions, just as big, definitely worth exploring more.
Okay, so today we've talked about Batterygate planned obsolescence, the rise of AI. It's clear technology is moving fast, and it's making us ask some big questions. It really is a lot to take in. But I think the important thing to remember is that we're not just along for the ride. With all this tech stuff, we could actually make a difference.
Oh, for sure. We can be informed consumers, ask the right questions,
Yeah.
hold these companies accountable.
Right. Speaking of accountability, let's go back to where we started, this whole Batterygate thing.
Yeah, good point. It really shows how powerful collective action can be.
Right. Even though Apple settled without admitting any wrongdoing, they still paid a lot of money. Got a lot of bad press.
Exactly. And it got people talking about planned obsolescence, the environmental impact, all that,
Yeah.
and the need for more transparency from these tech companies.
Right. A conversation that's still going on today,
Yeah.
and it's all connected to AI and how fast technology is changing.
Definitely. It makes you wonder, are we going to see more cases like Batterygate in the future?
Yeah. As tech gets even more complex, more a part of our lives, will there be new ethical problems, more legal battles?
Probably. As AI gets bigger, we're going to run into new issues. Biased privacy, maybe even AI being used for bad stuff.
It's like we're heading into uncharted territory.
Yeah, but it's exciting too.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's a lot of potential there.
A lot of opportunity to use these technologies to make things better.
So what can we do? How do we make sure tech is used for good? That we don't end up in some kind of dystopian nightmare?
Well, we can stay informed, stay involved, learn about these new technologies and talk about them, what they mean for us.
Right. Knowledge is power. The more we know, the better decisions we can make.
Exactly. And don't forget about your power as a consumer. Support companies that do the right thing. Demand transparency and accountability. Make your choices count.
So be mindful, be informed, be proactive.
Exactly. The future is not set in stone. It's something we create through the choices we make.
Well said. Okay, so I think that about wraps up our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot. The Batterygate settlement, planned obsolescence, the rise of AI. It's a lot to think about.
It is, but it's fascinating stuff. And I hope our listeners found it helpful, something to think about.
I hope so too. And remember, this isn't the end of the conversation. Keep learning, keep asking questions, keep demanding better from the tech that shapes our lives.
Absolutely. Stay curious, everyone.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends. We'll be back soon with more deep dives into the topics that matter most.